So Donkey Kong has a new look in his upcoming game that is coming out on Switch 2, and a lot of people have been debating if this new DK is better or worse than before, and I think it is worse. But don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about how he looks. I actually think that visually they did an amazing job with this version of Donkey Kong. But the problem is actually his voice and personality. And this is a change that has been happening progressively over the years, and I'm pretty sure it's been pushed by Nintendo Japan, so let's have a look. So first, let's look at the good old DK.
Okay!
This is what he used to look like, and of course, this is a bit outdated graphically, but in terms of actual character, I think this is the best version of Donkey Kong we've had so far, and the one most people look fondly back to.
Yeah!
Basically, this DK stands out among all the other Nintendo characters. If you look at Mario, Kirby, Yoshi, all of them have various traits, and there is quite a bit of overlap. But if I had to summarize these characters, I would say that they all share a childlike behavior to some degree. And of course, Nintendo games are often catered to kids, so having a childlike character kind of makes sense. Some versions of Link are childlike, but others are more mature. Samus is more mature. But still, we can see a trend among most Nintendo characters. Now, if we look at old DK, he came across as very different from all these other characters. At a first glance, I'd say he looks maybe a bit dumb, maybe a bit funny, and he has a beefy body type, which is something that's very rare for main Nintendo characters. So already at a glance, he's unique, and these character traits were used really well in these old DK games. For example, usually with the other characters I mentioned, when they collect whatever they were supposed to collect, they become all happy and celebrate a bit like kids. But in the old DK games, even when he collects what he's supposed to find, he'll celebrate, but still in a more laid-back way compared to the other characters.
Yeah!
So yeah, this character used to feel unique, recognizable, and stood out among not only other Nintendo characters, but even any game franchise available out there. But sadly, in 2002, Rare was bought by Microsoft, so they stopped working on the Donkey Kong franchise. And since then, I feel like Nintendo of Japan has been pushing DK in a different direction, which personally I think is less cool. As far as I know, the first iteration of this new DK appeared in Mario Kart Wii. Before that, if you listen to his voice in Mario Kart Double Dash, he still sounded the same as in the N64 game. But then in Mario Kart Wii, he sounded like this. This is insane, so hard to listen to. I don't know what's going on with this voice, but to me it sounds like an unhinged imitation of Scooby-Doo or something. The old DK looked and sounded a bit dumb, but this is pushing things way beyond where he seems like a complete idiot. And I don't think anyone on Earth could listen to this and be like, yeah, this is awesome. So in that game, he sounded different, but he still looked the same as before. So I guess the jump was not too jarring at the time. Then, in the years after, Retro Studio was hired by Nintendo, and they ended up making two 2D Donkey Kong games. And in these two titles, his voice was not as bad as in Mario Kart Wii, but his voice was still following the same general direction. I didn't do research on this, so I don't know if this was a choice by Retro themselves, or if they were forced by Nintendo to use this new voice and push DK in this direction. In those games, even though his voice was a bit annoying, he still looked the same as before, and even though his personality was a bit less cool than during the Rare era, it was still relatively similar overall. So I think most fans were fine with this version of the character. But in my mind, those games were part of the transition leading us to the new Donkey Kong that we're seeing today. In Mario Kart 8, he once again uses the same idiotic voice. And this brings us to Donkey Kong Bananza, this brand new game that's been announced for Switch 2. Honestly, I'm looking forward to play the game, but like many people, this new DK throws me off a little bit. And I've seen a lot of people say he looks different, something's off about his looks, but really, I don't think the way he looks is the problem. When he makes some angry faces, he actually looks amazing. And I do think that the team did an amazing job to give him a lot of personality. His facial expressions are so well done. He really looks like a living character. So he's really well made, but it's the personality that they decided to portray that is a bit off. It's as if after all these years, they finally decided, you know what? Let's match the in-game personality with this voice.
Oh, there he goes!
No!
Our hero, ladies and gentlemen.
And listen, I don't have a problem with this new Donkey Kong version. I'm sure it's gonna end up being a charming version of the character, and a lot of love and care has been put into making him. It's quite obvious. But when asking the question, is it better than before, I'm not sure, because the version before was very unique and popular. This new version of the character seems much closer to Mario. Even in a cutscene like this, the kind of joke they make with the character is pretty similar. Obviously, Mario is a massively successful character and franchise, so clearly this is a calculated decision by Nintendo. They're probably willing to sacrifice the uniqueness of DK and bring him closer to their other franchises, expecting it to sell better. And they might very well be right, but I think for longtime fans, there's now gonna be a void of a certain character that they liked that they won't be able to see in games anymore. Personally, I love that Nintendo is taking bold risks like this with their franchises in general. They have reinvented Zelda and Mario games many times, and this is what makes Nintendo such an exciting game developer. But with every change, there is a risk, and it's always possible that some changes are not always better. So with all that said, I'm not surprised at all that a lot of people are talking about this new DK right now, and I think it's a healthy discussion. But I think when a fan base reacts strongly like this to a change, there's usually a very good reason, and it's worth listening to what people are saying. So I'll be super curious to see how this topic evolves over the years. Who knows, maybe in 5 years, this new DK will be regarded as the best version, or it's possible that a big part of the fanbase will be missing the old Donkey Kong. So these were my thoughts on the new DK look. I'm curious what you guys think. Are you team or team? Leave a comment. I think it'll be pretty cool to look back in a few years and see if our thoughts have changed compared to our initial reaction. Alright, thank you for watching and see you next time.
Cool.